the February 3rd meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. For the record, IT has started recording without me asking. I love them. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We'll do our best to be efficient and let everyone participate. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be aware of what you say, how you say it, what can be seen and heard in your background. Chair recognizes the attendance and assistance of all our staff members, Jen, Kevin, Alyssa, Mark, Amy, and Susan. Thank you for all your help. We have a full complement of commissioners tonight. Thank you all for your diligence. Just to remind you guys, for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time so that we don't speak over each other. And the votes have to be done by roll call. So when I call your name, say your name and your vote. And again, it's redundant, but if you've made the motion or the second, still going to ask for your vote. To our public participants, there will be an opportunity for public comment for each hearing. If you'd like to comment on a particular hearing, you may submit any comments or questions via the chat function once that hearing has been opened. At the appropriate time, I will call for public comments and any submissions will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are posted on the agenda. First up, vote minutes, January 27th. Done? Anybody, I guess. Sorry.
I haven't read them, so I can't make a motion.
Anybody? We need to table them for future.
No,
I move to accept the minutes as written unless there are comments.
Second.
All right. Are there anything to add? And as you guys know, you can always submit things to Jen or Susan to correct any minor discrepancies. All right, with that, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Mark.
Rooney, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We've accepted the minutes. Next up is a request for a continuance under a notice of intent. David P. and Kathy E. Campbell, 0 Millfield Street, map 49A, 04 parcel / lot 064-001, Woods Hole, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a single-family dwelling and garage with associated paved driveway, crushed stone parking area, retaining walls, to install native trees and shrubs. That's it. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until March 3rd.
At the request of the applicant, and we'll continue it to March 3rd. Harlow Hawks.
Bird, second. I have a question, however, what's the reason for the postponement?
Jen?
The Campbells have hired Teresa Sprague at Blue Flax Design and need time to review and prepare plans.
Okay.
Good with that, Courtney?
Yep, I'm fine.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until March 3rd. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Rooney, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until March 3rd. Next up is a request for a continuance to amend the existing order of conditions. Karen Monroe, 26 Ferry Road, East Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP 254425 to allow for the driveway to be paved instead of gravel and to install a Cape Cod berm, crushed stone apron, and leaching pit. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 24th.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this until February 24th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until February 24th. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. First up, R Investments LLC, 77 Green Harbor Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, and to construct a new single-family dwelling, install a new Title V septic system, and all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Mr. Newton.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Carlo Hawks, second.
Okay, Mr. Newton, why is this not an NOI?
This is not an NOI similar to past projects the commission has approved under RDAs for homes located within flood zone AE only.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Leanne and Anthony Parzial, 6 Ocean Avenue, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, garage, and appurtenances to construct a new single-family dwelling with garage, decks, stairs, front porch with steps, rinse station, AC and generator units, and to reduce the existing driveway and install a rain garden. Mr. Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends a -2 under the state and under the bylaw, and resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks, second.
And I'll ask the same question as the chair asked for the previous one. Is it just flood zone?
Same answer, Courtney, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you. Next up, continued request for determination of applicability. First up, Richard Bose, 203 Chappaquoit Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a dune fence.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Newton?
No, it's going to be me, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon me.
I've met on site with the applicant and I'm recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks, second.
All right, Kevin, you threw one at me there. I'm gonna get you back. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you. Next up are requests for a hearing under a notice of intent All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. Before we go to the first one, I want to acknowledge the attendance of our illustrious chairman, Sam Patterson. Thank you, Sam. All right, first notice. Teague I. Campbell, 147 Bay Road, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to reconstruct an existing licensed timber pier, ramp, and float. Mrs. Lincoln.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Jeff Ryther up as a panelist to present the project. Jeff, let me know when you want me to share the plan.
Okay, I'll just give me a minute here.
Sure.
I'm gonna present the job, and then we'll go to that.
Okay.
All right, so I'm Jeff Ryther with BSS Design, representing Teague Campbell. This is done on Bay Road on the canal called Rand's Canal, of all things. And let me go through the resource areas. We got the flood zone, AE 15. Coastal bank, we got land under a salt pond, land containing shellfish, we got salt marsh, fish run, and coastal beach across the waterway. Excuse me. So this project is to reconstruct the pier, ramp, and float. And if you look close at your drawings, if anybody has them, you'll see that there's pretty good water on both sides of the proposed float. So I'm glad that we have at least water in that area.
Jeff, I'm going to share my plan just so everybody that's watching from home can see, okay?
Oh, that's fine.
Or is that fine? Okay. Can the commission see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks good. So there's a float at the end. It's a finger float, and we show the boat on the outside of it, and there's 5 foot of water at that point. And across from that, we have a sounding. It's about 4.2 feet. So it shows you we have pretty good water there. Not so good towards the north, but an improvement over the existing. The existing float, it grounds out every tide, every low tide. And we can improve that here by just moving this float out 9 feet and still keeping it narrow, because it's a dredged channel. And this means that it was the earth removed under the float area. And so we've got these very deep soundings, and then just adjacent to it is the existing float, and it sits on the bottom. So that shows you how steep the cut is. And there's a profile up in the upper right of your plan, and it shows how the bottom changes pretty drastically. Anyway, I mentioned that the channel was dredged, and this channel is pretty much man-made at this point. There's a lot of bulkheads and stone riprap, docks at every lot, and we're just trying to fix this one that's it's in dire need of an upgrade. So I meet all the lot line setbacks. It meets the Army Corps 25% rule, if you don't know that one. On the plan, there's a 19-foot dimension from the mean low water to the outbound or seaward end of the float. And then across the channel, we got 76 feet to the mean low water. So if you put 19 over 76, you get 0.25. So I'm right at the maximum to put it out. And I did that to keep off the bottom with that float. Let's see. This first section of the dock, it's if you look again, the profile or where the hand is now that Jen's pointing to, that area is going to be lifted off the marsh and off the bottom. It's to be a fixed pier. It's 4 by 26 feet. And we have a 3 by 20 ramp in the float.
Let me see if I can get the profile for you. There you go.
Yeah.
The section.
Yeah, you see how it drops off, and we've put the boating area, you know, off the finger float in that deep area. It shows 5 foot dimension off the bottom to the mean low water level. Let me see what else I got for you. Again, I mentioned that the dock's gonna be lifted up, not just over the any of the resources, but most importantly, the salt marsh. So we won't have right now there's the ramp goes right down and you walk along the bottom basically, because it's an articulating floating ramp. It's a little bit different than I've seen in the past. When we were doing the soundings, we found this area to be extremely mucky as well. And so one of the reasons if you look through the report, I didn't hire anybody to do a shellfish study. Very expensive and hard to find people that do them now. But they're out there. And this was because it was, again, man-made area, very, very mucky. And the quahogs are up along the wall is where I've seen a couple of soft shell clam holes, but nothing really around where the dock is, more over towards the new boat ramp, if you went out there. So one of the things we've done that may have been a bit of a mistake, and I'll confess to that, is the width of the dock. I should have made it a little bit narrower, and I can do that easily by making the boards. It's actually framed for a 3-foot dock, but it's got some overhang on the decking, so we can narrow that down and meet the DMF's 1.5 to 1 rule. There's a lot of rules on these dock designs, but I think we meet them all. And I'll just touch up that cross section, and we'll be all set. Lateral access. Well, I've shown it twice, but it turns out after thinking about it, the lateral access that shows right in front of the existing, it's a new bulkhead that went in, permitted. That sits pretty much on the salt marsh, and it's not the best design here because of where to put it. Do I put it out deeper, or do I leave it up close? I think that I can lift the dock a little bit and get 5 feet at the high tide line. So we actually have 2 different means of lateral access, up and over or underneath. But you just have to get your knees wet for the second option. I was going to say, if we did find any quahogs or steamers, at the new pilings, the location, we could just excavate those out and put them aside, and we won't damage any shellfish out there. One thing I didn't mention earlier, this does have a license. It's number 3795. We licensed it about 30 years ago. Still, there's about 60 years left on the license. Again, I mentioned just moving this float out 9 feet, we gain a lot of ability to meet the regulations. Although it goes out into the channel a little bit more than I would like, but there's a balance here. So we got to keep out of the channel and keep off the bottom. So with that, you know, I mentioned the word improvements. I think I've made several here over what the existing dock provides. So with that, I can hand it over to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Jen, you want to start?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As the staff report says, I mean, this is, or as Jeff has explained, although he is making some improvements to the dock to get it into deeper water, it is larger than the existing dock and therefore requires, this board has always required a shellfish survey with that. I understand they're expensive, but that is a requirement that this board is always held to, that if you're going to expand these structures, then especially if you're moving them further out into the resource area, then a shellfish survey needs to be performed. So that was the first thing. The second was, and you may be able to handle this, Jeff, when you reduce the size of the float, but the existing dock, if you look at the terminal float, that's actually only 108 square feet, according to the license. The 157 square feet of float that Jeff mentions in his plan is that end float plus the float underneath the ramp that was used to hold that ramp up off the salt marsh. So together, that's 157 square feet, and the applicant is requesting 160, where your regulations generally limit the size of an end float to 100 square feet. So it is a substantial increase in what the regulations allow. Now, if the board, you know, wants to take the two floats that Jeff has in the original license, that's fine, but I would still stick to that 157 square feet, which might be able to be achieved if Jeff redesigns the dock. The other thing we picked up on was that DMF recommendation. They've been making that recommendation for a number of years now. They want these docks up in the air to provide light for those salt marshes. So definitely a 1 to 1.5 width to height should be a standard design for all docks in Falmouth. And I think that is it. Jeff, did you have a time of year restriction on this from DMF? I'm looking at DMF's letter right now.
It didn't mention it, but you know, I did note it that we were in a fish run here.
Yeah, you are on
also-
a fish run. So,
There's a ladder right up the channel.
okay, so
About
you'll,
100 yards from there. So
okay, so we'll incorporate a, I'm surprised they didn't put the time of year restriction, because they put it for the reconstruction of the bulkhead and the boat ramp on this one, on the original project for the boat ramp and the bulkhead, they had a time of year restriction. So, well, I can double check with DMF when you're doing some design changes and figure out if they want a time of year restriction on that for the herring.
that's pretty much the spring and fall.
Yeah,
How about summer months? You know?
they would be up, I don't think so. It would be up to DMF. I know that, I don't know if they gave a waiver to the boat ramp when it was being constructed, so.
Okay.
And I think that is it, Mr. Chairman.
All
I
right.
mean, we were concerned about the lack of shellfish survey, the increase in the float size, the design recommendations from DMF not being adhered to. I also want to point the board's attention to that they are putting 2 boats on this. They are proposing to put 2 boats. They have the larger boat and then a Zodiac on the inside of that L-shaped pier, which this board always generally just allows 1 boat to be tied to a dock at any one time. So just calling your attention to that as well. And I think that's it, unless Mr. Newton has anything to add.
I don't, Jen. Thank you.
I think the staff
All right.
report pretty much sums it up.
Thank you. Betsy?
I just have a couple of comments. One is I definitely think there should be a shellfish survey. Second is I'm pretty sure DMF was going to want a time of year restriction because a lot of sediment during migration is not good for the fish. And the third is I realize there's a lot of work being done there for the bulkhead. And then there's be some work done while they're doing the dock, but I'd like to have some. I figured during the bulkhead, there was probably conditions to kind of restore the buffer. So I'm just wondering what the plan is to restore the buffer area once the dock is done. That's all. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you. Courtney?
Yeah, I would agree with Betsy about the shellfish survey. And I'm just curious, Jeff, when the dock was originally permitted, do you have evidence about the soundings? What were the depths where the boats are moored? Do you have any evidence of that?
Well, we did a Chapter 91, Chapter 91 amnesty, not an amnesty, it's not your, what am I trying to say? It actually, there's 2 different amnesties, and this was the amnesty license, not the interim approval. And so it was a 99-year license. So we did, quite a bit of soundings, but you'd have to let, in your notice of intent towards the end, there's a couple of sheets. There's a site plan, and then there's a
Well, my question really is directed to when this dock was originally permitted, do you have any indication what the depths were around that float? In other words, I guess where I'm going is this shoaling in?
Well, it shows, well, I would say it probably is a little bit.
Okay, so then the question becomes the law of unintended consequences. If that dock weren't there, would the channel have been dredged there in the area where the dock now is, and therefore you'd have the adequate depths? Which leads me to the question, if you now push the dock out deeper, are you essentially going to have the same situation where it shoals and shoals until it's finally not deep enough to have a boat, and you'll be back to us saying we need to go further out into the canal?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen now that we have a bulkhead that, is made of vinyl and it's tough as nails. So it's, but I was going to answer your question. I was looking at the notice. It's in the back of all your, the notice of intent. And I hope everybody's got a copy.
I have it up on my screen. If you would like me to share the screen with the Chapter 91 license plan, I can share that if the board's interested.
It shows soundings of.
It show any soundings?
Here we go, guys.
That's
Got that
the
one.
that's the second page. It shows some depths, but
There you go, Jeff.
okay, it's the one at the bottom there that's darkened in.
Right here.
And it has, well, Well, you can see at each end of the dock, it doesn't really indicate. We used to put the sounding, the decimal point on the location. So we have 1.6 at the outer face and 2.1.
So that was at the time that the license occurred.
Right, that was in 90, in the 90s. I'd have to look.
Okay, so probably hasn't shown. up.
93.
Yeah, it's 93. That was during the industry period, the 5 years there.
Mhm.
It shows, very similar conditions as far as the tide lines. It has that same shape if you look at one plan to the other.
And so this won't represent any kind of impediment to navigation?
Well, the harbor master said yes, and he said, so they all say yes, because, when you change the shoreline with the dock, then you've changed the navigation, but it's not really, a full negative. It meets the Army Corps regulations for, maneuvering in a channel. So this thing can't be out any further than I drew. And the reason I drew it where it is again, to, go for that deepest water that's permittable.
Okay. I suppose they can always pull the float if they have to dredge. Okay. No other questions?
Well, it's very difficult to dredge these days, and so that's why we didn't go that route.
All right,
Yeah.
Kevin, Jen, you want to stop sharing, please?
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Mr. O'Brien.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mark?
I think I agree with Jen. I'm sure that they can redesign the dock float to get back within our regulations without exceeding them like it currently does. That's all.
All right, Maury?
I agree with Mark and Jen. What happens is everybody keeps getting bigger boats and then they want bigger docks. So we just can't keep going down that rabbit hole. And I really hope that the height of the dock would allow walking underneath it instead of that public access through the salt marsh.
Yeah, that'll be removed.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat?
It seems to me, and I don't know if I'm looking at this correctly, Jen, but it seems to me that because this is not just a reconstruction, but it's an alteration of an existing dock, that it's subject to our current regulations, i.e. the Shellfish Survey and the 100 square foot limitation on the float. I don't understand how that could possibly be grandfathered for the total square footage of the prior dock, because it is a new dock subject to new regulation, to the current regulations.
Well, the commission's always had, if you're going to enlarge or extend an existing dock, that the Shellfish Survey be required. Okay. The board has allowed, when you're reconstructing, and you just saw one a couple of weeks ago, because I just wrote the order for it today, that when you're rebuilding pretty much in kind in the same footprint, a previously licensed structure. Now remember, we all say this has a license, but Jeff, do you know if this ever received an order of conditions? I can look real quick, actually.
You mean?
You have allowed those larger end floats or NTs to be constructed in the license configuration. And I think that's what Jeff was trying to get at, was using that square footage. But you're right, this is a new dock, and it should be subject to your current regulations, at least in staff's mind, as far as the Shellfish surveys go. The float size, the board has approved in the past a larger T section or float section if it had been previously licensed or permitted that way. But if the board feels that this is a whole new structure, they're changing the configuration, they're adding 2 more boats. They are changing the use of this dock, which is concerning to the staff, especially since they're bringing that Zodiac closer into shore.
And is the depth, the Zodiac looks like it's in pretty shallow water.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I,
And my only other
Hold on.
comment,
The Zodiac in 4.2.
4.2, okay. My only other comment is I agree with Maury that to be encouraging people to walk through the marsh, just the public to get over the dock doesn't seem like very favorable design for the resource area.
right. Well, what we did in this one, on the profile, we show a 5.4 dimension at the first set of piles. And that was to allow for lateral access, but also the applicant wanted a way to get down off the dock onto the shore. Say if he wanted to do some maintenance to the boat and he needed to be down there. So we were trying to give you almost 2 means depending on the tide or whatever, under or over. So, but we can take one away and just go with the under lateral access. This is under at high tide.
Jeff, when did this dock come in? Because I just looked at, when did this dock go in? Because I just looked at a site plan from 1986 for the bulkhead, and it doesn't show a dock. Yet you had a Chapter 91 amnesty license in 93. So what happened between 86 and 93 that this dock went in? Did it get an RDA? Did it get a order of conditions? Because I don't see one in our files.
In the 90s, we filed an RDA. That's what you did back then for the amnesties. So,
but the amnesties were given out for pre-existing docks, and the dock is not shown on the 86 site plan for the bulkhead. So the amnesty licenses, and from what I know, were issued by DEP to kind of clean up all these little docks that were everywhere. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't shown on the 86 site plan for the bulkhead. So was it put in between 86 and 93?
Well, again, I people have changed. Mr. Silva is long gone. His wife too. That's the former owner.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's who the license is licensed under, Alfred P. Silva. Geez, it's
just something maybe we could look into for us, Jeff.
It's a completely seasonal structure, so everything comes out, and all there's left is the Mount Rock that is where the where the ramp connects.
Mm-hmm.
So and maybe it just wasn't put in at that point when the aerial was put in. I don't know, but it was old when I saw it in the 90s, and Mr. Campbell has been touching it up over the years, and it's just time to redo it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pat, you all set?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Peter?
Okay, my comment is that if you were to just maintain the dock or reconstruct it exactly how it was approved with the license, all the other discussion wouldn't come into play because it was originally licensed to set up 1993. And if it rests on the marshland, if it didn't have a limitation of 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 boats, it's the same thing, just reconstructing the same thing. If you choose to expand it, modify the footprint, you have to do it in accordance with the existing regulations, which would include a shellfish survey, making sure that the float is not resting too close to the bottom, and other regulations. And if you get the dock conforming to the present regulations, probably I personally could see approving the 157 square feet or whatever as the further one, but that would be a judgment call. But the contrast is just rebuilding existing footprint and structure, or modifying the structure is a big thing to me. That's my comment.
You, Steve.
Thank you. Very nice round of questionings. I think they've covered everything. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
Nothing in the chat, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, so what are we looking at?
If you're asking me, I would like to ask for a continuance to get you a shellfish survey and to talk this over with my client, because, you know, it was interesting that Peter Walsh said, what if you just rebuilt it right in the same spot? And that is an option. Like, you know, he could, you know, in the off season, in his yard across the road, put together that same exact dock, and it would sit on the bottom every day, twice a day. It would, the ramp would be on the, you know, that ramp float would sit on the bottom every day. And it would be, you know, slam bag right in the middle of everything. So, you know, it's.
Continuance date?
To me, oh, okay, continuance date. Well, I probably need 4 weeks. So I have to hire somebody here, and then I'm not even sure I can do it in that time, because I'd have to get you a plan, revised plan, in 3 weeks. So I'd like to start with 4 weeks and see where we can go from there.
Jeff, that would bring you either to March 3rd, or you could have March 3rd or the 10th. It's up to you.
March 10th.
You want the 10th? Okay.
Oh,
I mean, I think, Jeff, you can make some positive design changes on this and get it up. I mean, it's not going to, I don't think it's going to be a real challenge to meet that DMF recommendation.
No, that's not an issue at all.
What was that?
That's not an issue at all. That,
yeah.
Right.
All you have to do is narrow the dock, and not by much, by half a foot, and 3.5 foot, and it'll meet that 1.5. I did a little bit of homework here, so
yeah.
So just in case they'd ask. So, but again, it's framed for a 3-foot dock. All I have to do is cut the boards, you know, narrower. Okay. We'll have a 3.5 foot dock, and it'll meet the regulation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't meet the regulation of 100 square foot float.
Oh, well, I'm asking.
It's just combining the two floats.
I am.
You're keeping it the same size.
A little bit creative there to, you know, to be honest with you folks, you know, I've done a lot of docks in different towns, and this is the smallest we're allowed, or the largest we're allowed is 100 square feet. Mashpee's 150, and the difference between the stability of those two is huge. So, you know, you gotta think about that once in a while about safety, because the 100-foot float it doesn't fit any of the boats, and it's wobbly. So it's, you know, no matter if you go by 6 by 16 or 8 by 12.
Or 10 by 10 are very stable. It's just that they want the length of the boat on the dock.
Yeah, well, 10 by 10's, it's like a swim float. It sinks in the corners.
Well, at the moment, that's our regulation,
Much.
so,
I know, Rich, I'm just saying,
you know,
it's just something.
yeah.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this to March 10th.
Carla Hawk, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until March 10th. There's no further comments? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter. You're muted, Peter. There you are.
Walsh, aye.
Thank you. Steve? Steve, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Get that? Okay, thank you.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until March 10th. Thank you, Mr. Eiler.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Welcome.
Next up are continued hearings under notice of intent. The first one is 0 Millfield Street. That has been continued until March 3rd. Next up is Lawrence and Valerie Sullivan, 345 Grand Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise RAZE, the existing single-family dwelling, and to construct a new single-family dwelling with associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Ben?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Mike Borselli up as a panelist. One quick thing, Jeff, are you done for this evening? Or are you staying on later?
I'm all set.
Okay, I just didn't want to boot you from the hearing.
No.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, Jeff.
Yeah.
Night, Jeff.
All right, Mike, you're up.
Thank you.
Borselli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Michael Borselli. I represent the applicant. This is a continued hearing. We made a presentation at our first hearing, and there were a couple of minor items to address. And with that, if I could briefly share my screen, Mr. Chairman, I'll go over those.
Yes, sir.
Basically, there was a small section of existing deck that we had neglected to show on the plan that's been incorporated into the existing conditions plan and the proposed plan. We can't ascertain its age, but it is proposed to be removed, and it didn't really come into play on the mitigation calculations. We're continuing to still provide the original amount of mitigation planting. We didn't try to take credit for the deck removal, even though it's being removed, because we couldn't really see it in the photos and in the shadows. So that's it on that item. We also have now since added a proposed generator and AC units tucked into this little jog nook of the proposed house. And that sums it up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Jen, do you want to start?
I have no questions or comments, Mr. Chairman,
All right.
unless Kevin has something to add, Mr. Newton.
I have no additional comments. Thank you.
All right. We'll go down and ask everyone anyway. Maury?
No comment.
All right. Pat?
No comments.
Peter?
No comment.
Steve?
No comment.
Betsy?
No comments.
Courtney?
In the interest of continuity, no comments.
Kevin?
No comments.
Mark?
No comments.
Mike, my only comment is thank you for clarifying all that. All
You're
right.
very welcome.
Jen, is there any public chat function comments?
No.
Like to make a motion to close this hearing and take it under advisement.
Carla Hawk, second.
All right. We have a motion and competing seconds for close this hearing and take it under advisement. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Pat,
RSI.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
Thank you.
Next up, Francis and Claire Norton, 87 Childs River Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling to construct a new single-family dwelling utilizing the existing foundation to install a new, larger septic tank and for all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Borselli has stayed on as a panelist to present this next project.
Excellent. Mr. Borselli, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Again, Mike Borselli, I represent the applicant, and I'd like to briefly share my screen, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
I'm first going to, just to refresh your memory, show you the original plan. This is the second hearing, and there were some questions and comments and some suggested recommendations. So I'm only showing you the previous plan to refresh your memory about this proposed bump out addition. Just to recall, I'm now showing the new revised plan. And you can see that that addition's been removed. The addition was removed for two reasons. There was some concerns and questions about the proximity to this 15-inch pine tree. And we had proposed to prune it and try to protect it, but we all came to the conclusion, including the owner, that the tree was in potential jeopardy. And they really didn't see the need for that addition. In addition to not needing the addition, they were hoping to preserve some open and flat lawn area here for outside recreational purposes. So with this addition, it was a 200 square foot addition, which in and of itself requires 300 square feet of mitigation. It required a significant area of mitigation here. So by elimination of the addition, it reduced the amount of mitigation. And that is due to increases in impervious surface here by this addition on the street side of the house. So we've revised the plans accordingly. There was the only other comment I'm aware of is some concern about this 12-inch pine tree and if it was going to be at risk when the house is reconstructed. We looked at it more closely. There's no further projection of this house in any direction. It's off the corner a significant distance and this foundation is not to be replaced. There's no excavation. So we're fairly confident that the tree can continue to coexist with the house. I think that's everything. I added a note about the water service. That was as a result of a comment from the water department, because this is also before the zoning board of appeals. And I just added this note to reconnect the water service to the reconstructed house and upgrade the service as necessary. I think that sums up the plan revisions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Jen?
Mike, can you do me a favor? Can you explain once again why we have to have the 1,500 gallon tank and not so we have to replace the 1,000 and they don't allow 1,000 gallon tanks anymore. So we have to go with the 1,500, but there is no increase in design flow, correct?
Correct. You summed it up perfectly.
Okay. There's a reason I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, so the house is being reconstructed in a way that there'll be no increase in bedrooms. But because, I guess I'll share my screen again because I'm pointing at it without sharing it, which seems to be a habit I have lately. This addition here on this side makes the existing septic tank, which is here, too close. The minimum setback is 10 feet. So because we have to replace the tank, and the minimum size used to be 1,000, the Board of Health in Title V requires that the tank be upgraded to a 1,500 gallon tank. So we basically did it for that reason only. There's no proposed increase in bedrooms.
Anything else, Jen?
No.
Mr. Newton, you have anything to add?
Mike, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but do you know if there's in-ground irrigation on the site?
There is. There's
Okay.
the reason I know that is I was there one day, and it was interesting that even though the house was unoccupied and burned, the irrigation went on one day when I was there.
Oh, okay.
It's there. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So Mike, just for my own curiosity, if you weren't putting that front addition on, you wouldn't have been touching that tank. You wouldn't have had to change it, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right, Betsy,
No comments.
Courtney,
No questions or comments.
Kevin,
No comments.
Mark,
No comments.
Maury.
This one, Mike, was that old tank an H10 or an H20?
I don't know.
Yeah, so probably it's better anyway that it's being upgraded to an H20.
Yeah, it's very
No.
close to the driveway.
Yep, thank you, no comments.
Pat,
No comment.
Peter.
Jen, we had some discussion about some fencing. Was that resolved?
I don't believe it was, Peter. Good point. Mike, did you get so they're putting the vegetation, they're putting the mitigation on the south side, correct?
Yes.
And they're gonna keep that little metal fence there? You were gonna look into that for us?
Well, yeah, they have grandchildren and they're concerned about the riprap. They want to keep the fence there. It's been there for a very long time. But it's
And
right
I
up
got a
against
privacy fence on the south side, but there's no fence along Jean Path, correct?
Correct. There's no fencing along.
Yeah, okay. I guess they want to keep it, Peter.
Okay, no further comments.
All right, Steve.
The driveway is gravel. It's not, it's impervious.
Yes.
Okay. We received some comments from the Wacoit Bay group, and they would like you to look into gentrifying systems for the house, for the septic systems. Just a suggestion. I'd like to put it out there. No other comments.
Thank you.
I think we'd all like to see D-Night systems, but hey. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
There isn't anything in the public chat, but the Wacoit group wanted us to read their comment into the record, Mr. Chairman.
It's been distributed, no?
It has, but they
Okay, go ahead.
specifically requested that I read it.
Yep, go ahead.
Comments from the citizens for the protection of Wacoit Bay. We are happy that the Nortons are going to rebuild their home and wish them all the best. We propose some changes to the plan that would make it much more beneficial to the environment, Child River and Wacoit Bay. The ACEC, the Child River is one of the three main surface sources of fresh water to Wacoit Bay, which is, contrary to the application, an area of critical environmental concern. As such, all redevelopment should meet stronger environmental standards. Wacoit Bay is severely stressed by nutrient loading and is destined to be addressed by the town of Falmouth's wastewater management plan in the near future. Until that time, the owners can go from being good law-abiding neighbors to being excellent environmental stewards of Wacoit Bay without adding too much expense to the overall project. Impervious surface. The driveway construction can be built without using blacktop. Tilling specifically made for this purpose can be used to allow water to flow through, or it can be layered with shells or stones. This is not possible. We suggest rainwater runoff from the driveway be directed into the dry wells used to catch rainwater from the roof. Lawn. The lawn area should be prohibited or greatly diminished. If any is installed, fertilizer and pesticides should be prohibited. Septic waste. The Conservation Commission should consider allowing the owners to keep the 1,000-gallon tank in exchange for the installation of a composting urine diverting toilet. These have been permitted and used successfully in town. And the citizen, I think this is the Citizens for the Protection of Quoit Bay, would support the project with these changes, and we hope the Conservation Commissions will consider these practical types of recommendations for any new home or home rebuild in Quoit Bay or any of our bays. Thank you for your consideration, Matt Patrick, Chairman. Just a couple of things. This property is actually not within the ACEC. Quoit Bay is in the ACEC, but this property is not located in that ACEC. And we clarified why the tank is being upgraded or brought to code. We have to get rid of the project cannot allow the tank to remain because of the proposed addition. So correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, Title V requires the 1,500-gallon tank now.
Yes.
And then the lawn fertilizer and pesticide use is actually prohibited through the nitrogen bylaw in town. So I believe that is addressed. And the only thing that wasn't addressed, as Steve said, was the consideration of a composting or urine diverting toilet or a D-night system. And that, I think, is the only chat we had, Mr. Chairman.
Maury?
Just a quick comment. Because it's not required to do a D-night, but you might, Mike, want to just reach out to your clients, because if they're putting a new tank in, the nitro or the eliminate are the chambered ones that'll do the denitrifying, that are pretty easy once you already have your leach field in. I mean, it's just something to explore. If they're concerned about Quoit Bay, it might be something they just weren't aware of. And they
I'm
might
happy
want
to
to do
talk
it.
to them about that. They're probably in the audience listening, so we can chat about that. And if it's something they want to consider, we'd come back for an amendment and we get.
Because you can't use them with a 1,000-gallon tank. They're just, they don't fit. But with a 1,500-gallon chambered, they're pretty easy to retrofit, and it's just something that might work for them.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Maury, would you happen to know, is Quoit Bay, not Quoit Bay, Buzzard Bay Coalition, do they have any more grants available?
They do have grants, but they're not on that side of town. But they are a
Okay.
great resource to reach out to get any information you would like for the best systems that are practical for your application. They've done all the research now for, I think, 5 years.
Understood. I can reach out to them. I'm doing a project for the Buzzards Bay Coalition right now, and I can speak to some of the folks over there.
Sounds good.
I saw they just got a grant to put in to continue following the data of how things are changing there, so that they have some automated systems that are going to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All good information.
Yep.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
Close the hearing and take it under advisement. Harlow Hawks.
Bird, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close this hearing and take it under advisement. There's nothing further. Betsy?
Gladfilter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Me, aye.
Maury?
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We've closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
Mike, are you done for the evening?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, good
Have
night.
a good night, everyone. Thanks.
Right,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Good night.
Next up, Sarah Commugus Young and Leighton Felker Young III, 10 Quahog Pond Lane, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a new deck and to conduct invasive species and non-native species management.
Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Jen Crawford up from Crawford Ecological to go over the plan revisions.
Good evening,
Thank you.
everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm prepared to share my screen if I need to, but the revisions that were requested were fairly straightforward, so I thought I would just run through them quickly. And like I said, if I need to share my screen, I certainly can. So one of the things that I know staff requested was the addition of annual monitoring reports. So I have included that on the restoration plan, along with some parameters for what would be included in those annual monitoring reports. There was also a request to change some of the sweet gale for a little bit, another native shrub a little bit larger in stature. So I have done that. And those were, most of those were located along that northern property line. So those have been changed. The applicant had put a small shed on the property that was not included on the original survey or site plan. So that has been added for your record. And the plant schedule on the plan was revised accordingly to accommodate for the sweet gale switching to a different shrub. And then, as I noted in my transmittal letter to the commission, I had noticed a couple other things were amiss with the plant schedule, so that now correctly aligns with everything that is shown on the plan. So those are the summary of the requests and the things that were changed and we submitted for your review.
Thank you. Mrs. Lincoln.
I have no additional comments or questions. Thank you very much, Jen. Kevin, Newton?
No comment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Maury.
I'm not on the quorum, I don't believe, because we had the fire at Bauman's that night. Right?
You are correct. All right. Pat.
No comments, thank you.
All right. Peter.
No questions or comments.
Steve.
Questions or comments? Thank you.
Betsy, you're not on the quorum. Courtney.
Me too. No questions or comments.
I was going to say, is it me too, I'm not on the quorum, or me too, no questions or
Well,
comments?
I qualified that. Yeah.
Hashtag me too.
No questions or comments.
All right. Kevin O'Brien.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mark.
No questions. Thank you.
All right. Jen, do we have any public or chat comments?
There's no public chat
All right.
or other comments.
All right. What are you thinking?
I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Well, second.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second, to close this hearing and take it under advisement. If there are no further comments. All right. Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Mark.
Rooney, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is closed. Thank you, Ms. Crawford.
Thank you.
Don't go far, Jen.
I won't, I promise.
Okay.
All right. Next up, continued request to amend the existing order conditions. 26 Ferry Road has already been continued until February 24th. Therefore, next is continued hearings under an enforcement order. First up, Cape House 11 LLC, 223 Meadow Neck Road, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of vegetation within conservation jurisdiction.
You
Yes,
weren't
Mrs.
kidding when you
Lincoln.
said don't go far.
I know. I'm just going to give a quick overview. The commission remembers this. We had continued this enforcement and the next enforcement to the end of this month, hoping to have some plans. Everyone's schedule is just crazy, but Jen's here to give a brief, like, kind of progress report and give the commission kind of a summary of the steps taken to address the issue. And so, Ms. Crawford.
Take it away. So for this enforcement, both Coastal Engineering Company has been retained, as well as Crawford Land Management. The site plan that you have on record for this particular property does not have survey or resource delineation for the area of the enforcement order. So one of the first steps that we need to do is to get that information to make sure that we have everything accurate for you. And I've spoken with Jen about this previously. We've been in touch. So Coastal is, like I said, we're both retained to be doing that, and we're both working on it. I spoke with Don Monroe, the project manager from Coastal, earlier this evening to just touch base with him on their survey schedule. With the weather that we've had recently, they have had to push things out a few extra days. And so in that, and I know, speaking with Jen about some of the issues that, some of the COVID issues that have been happening between everybody, we would respectfully request that we can continue to March 10th. I think that that will give everyone adequate time to put together the necessary information restoration plan. I also was able to actually, Jen was able to provide me with an aerial photograph, which is pretty darn good quality for that area when trees were not in leaf. So that's one of the things that I'll be using to help identify where there were trees previously located before the cutting took place. So all of that information is coming together, and thus far, the owner has been very cooperative, and committed to providing the information that you guys have requested him to do so. So that's where we're at.
Jen, you're okay with all this?
I'm fine. Jen and I have spoken. Like I said, the survey schedules are crazy. Everybody's been, a little backed up. And I think it's appropriate to just continue it on the agenda, just to keep it moving forward. The goal of any enforcement matter is not to be punitive, but to have the resource areas restored. So if we're working towards that, and if we can get a plan in early March, then we can get, issue the enforcement order at sometime mid-March to have them start planting in April, which is actually a perfect time to be doing that work. So I think this is aligning nicely into a spring planting goal.
All right. Anybody have anything they want to ask or add?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if I can quickly add something.
Yes, please.
Jen, has erosion control been installed on that coastal bank? I know that the commission had asked that to be done.
Honestly, that's a great question. I do not know the answer to that. That is something that I will have to speak with Nick about. He's at home with our 2 kids tonight, so I will ask him when I get home. I can certainly send you guys an update in the morning, and I actually will happen to be down. I'm doing site visits tomorrow. I'll be down that way, so I can also swing by the property and take a look as well.
Thanks,
Okay, yeah, I just think
There
it's
is
really.
Go on, Kevin.
Oh, I was just saying, I think it's just really imperative to have, if we have more storms like we had this past week, just to prevent any sort of runoff into that salt.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, I will get you the answer, and I'll be in touch with you and Jen tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yep.
I went out after that last, I guess the original hearing when we talked about this erosion, and it wasn't a great day there wasn't any rain, but that site's not real vulnerable to being problematic. Not to say it shouldn't be monitored, but I have not gone out post storm, but it would be a good idea, Jen, if you guys could just double check that.
Yep.
All right. Betsy's dying to say something.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to continue this to March 10th.
Harlow Hawk second, and thank you, Kevin, for catching that.
All right, so the motion in the second is to continue this till March 10th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Renee, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until March 10th. Thank you again, Ms. Crawford.
Yes, thank you all very much for your patience and understanding as we get this together for you. We all really appreciate it.
As do we.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Jen. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Next up, Claudia Senadis, 51 Pondview Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of vegetation within conservation jurisdiction. Mrs. Lincoln.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So again, the goal is to move these projects forward. Denise have retained Brian Wall. Brian had an on-site meeting with Paul Muskowski, who I believe is going to be preparing a restoration plan for that area. They were able to meet out there this afternoon. And Brian sent this email late this afternoon after I actually saw Brian right after he met out there at another on-site meeting. So he was able to send this when he got back to his office. This serves to confirm that I had an on-site meeting today with Claudia Denise and Paul Muskowski at 51 Pondview Drive. We anticipate having a proposed planting plan prepared in the next 2 weeks. Therefore, would like to have, and thereafter, we would like to have an on-site meeting with you to discuss the plan prior to formally submitting it to the commission. In light of the foregoing, we are requesting a hearing scheduled for tonight be continued to March 3rd, or some date thereafter that is convenient for the commission. So again, as long as these projects are moving forward, I'm okay with that and feel that, you know, we should allow people the time to prepare these restoration plans. So I'm fine with the March 3rd date.
All right. Mr. Newton, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any comments or questions?
No.
All right. So the request is to continue until March 3rd.
So moved.
Second, Harlow Hawks.
All right. We have a motion, a second to continue this till March 3rd. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Renee, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawk's eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until March 3rd. Thank you, everyone. Next up, vote order of conditions. First up, Eugene Clerkin, 67 Cliffwood Lane, Falmouth, Mass. Jen and/or Kevin.
I'm getting there, Mr. Chairman. I just am drawing a complete.
Take your time. We have all night.
Yep, this is the one. Tim Santos prepared the plan. It was for a proposed addition, proposed porch, proposed deck, stone retaining wall, stairs, permeable path, and mitigation planting along the freshwater wetland, and a little glob of mitigation planting along Cliffwood Lane. And there was the discussion about the significance of this coastal bank, because it was coming in, it's at the very tip of that a flood zone associated with Mashapackwick Creek. I can never say the name of that creek.
Good job.
It's pretty close, Jen.
You never say the name of that one.
What's the name of that creek?
Show off.
Don't make me say it again.
You're gonna get a test on it next week, Steve.
I'm not on the quorum, so I can't even talk.
Yeah, for the record, Kevin and Steve are not on the quorum for any of the order conditions. All right. Does anybody have anything they want to see on this one? That we
So
would
more-
normally have?
Yeah, Maury made a suggestion, and I thought it was a good one to consider planting some red maples there. Do you remember that, Maury?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Tim Santos agreed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we should probably say that.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
Put that in the findings.
Yeah, in the findings would be ace of rooms instead of, I think he had. White oaks.
So yeah, red maples
So
instead.
he did say one of, or, tupelo, white oak or red maple. They should probably be the red maple there.
Okay.
I just have a question. Did they submit a plan showing the buffer zones to the?
Yes, they did. Sorry about that. That plan came in today.
Great, thanks.
Yep, we have that.
and I just have a confession to make that I've already made to Pat, but I'm going to make it to Jen. And to say to Jen, I agree with you completely on your interpretation of the coastal bank that touches a resource.
Attaboy.
Okay. And
All right,
maple
anything
for
else?
oak.
All
Nope.
right, anybody?
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
Well, it's more about ordering an issue of conditions, but
Oh, yeah. So hearing and order, issue and order conditions. Sorry,
excellent. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Mark,
Renee, aye.
Maury,
Hello, Hawks Eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Next up, Marion K. Wright, trustee. Marion K. Wright Trust, 15 Darrell Lane, Falmouth, Mass.
This is a septic upgrade by Bracken Engineering. Yeah, I think the only question we had is, could the tanks be moved off the bank? And it was because of the interior plumbing. I don't think the board had much discussion on this one. It's a pretty straightforward project.
I think the only thing we talked about was the Phragmites that had been historically mowed since like the 60s.
Yes, that's right.
And, not that we're against them mowing it, but they should probably get a permit to mow it and do a restoration plan of some sort or whatever. Because it's at least keeping the Phragmites down.
All right, I will discuss that with Zach from Bracken Engineering. And we can make that a finding and a condition that they should seek permitting to continue that work.
With that, I close it here. I know. Yeah.
Motion,
Issue an order of
In order of
conditions.
conditions as discussed.
second,
Second.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion in competing seconds to issue an order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Mark,
Renee, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks Eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
and Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Stephen Parker, 12/lot 39 Bridge Street, Falmouth, Mass.
This is to construct the new home at Bridge Street. Kevin and I had gone out with Mr. Borselli a month or so or 3 ago to confirm that it was a non-eroding coastal bank. We had some questions from the neighbor whether it was a buildable lot, but that's going to be a zoning building commissioner question, not a conservation commission question. And I think the only discussion really revolved around, having those improvement plantings so close to the house, and it should be something that they're just not going to hack. So I think he proposed the arrowwood. Maury, you had some concerns with it because of the arrowwood. Gets pretty big, so we can work with Mike on a kind of a lower growing plant to add along there and try to find a way to incorporate these improvement plantings.
And Mike seemed amenable to working with staff on that. Did he give you a new plan showing the trees? 25 foot?
Oh, I don't no, he might have already submitted that. I have to double check because he showed us that plan at the last hearing. He had the plan done. I'll just double check to make sure we have it in the record.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head if it came in, but the plan had already been done because he actually displayed it last week.
And then the only other thing was on my notes, AC pads, I think were Jamie's questions, and he said that they would come back with an amendment if they needed them.
Yeah, AC generator and rent station. Once they figured out where they want to put them.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Just make a finding that they're not on the plan.
And he did mention a future, potential future amendment for the 4-foot path and the Vista pruning.
I'll make a motion to accept as discussed.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the order of conditions as discussed. There's nothing else. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Mark.
Rooney, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Joseph and Mary Noonan, 183 Surf Drive, Falmouth, Mass.
This was an amendment to, I think, just slightly shift the location of the house, and I believe they reduced the size of the house to address some neighbor concerns or abutter concerns with the project.
Smaller house, more mitigation plannings.
Yeah, correct.
Win-win.
Gotta love it. All right, anything anybody wants to see in there?
I'll make a motion to accept as discussed.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the order as discussed. There's nothing else. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Mark.
Rooney, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted the order of conditions as discussed. That is all we have, folks.
Really? You don't have another half hour for us, Jamie?
I don't.
On that happy
I
note.
make a motion to adjourn.
Carlo Hawks, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn.
Gladfelter, aye.
Bird, aye.
Courtney. Slow down. Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Mark.
Rooney, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you,
Good night,
everyone. Thank
everyone.
you, IT.
Good night, everyone.